Right now, as you listen to these words, somewhere in the Earth's oceans, a small translucent creature, the size of your pinky nail, is doing something that humans have dreamed of since we first became aware of our own mortality. It's dying, but unlike every other death in nature, this isn't an ending. It's a beginning. The creature sinks to the ocean floor, its bell-shaped body contracting, folding in on itself like an umbrella, closing in reverse. Over the next few days, something impossible happens. Instead of decomposing, instead of becoming food for other creatures, instead of returning its atoms to the great oceanic cycle, this jellyfish transforms. It becomes younger. It reverses its own aging. It returns to its polyp stage, essentially becoming a baby again. This isn't science fiction. This isn't mythology. This is Turritopsis dohrnii, known to science as the immortal jellyfish, and it might hold the key to understanding aging, death, and the very nature of life itself. Perhaps you're settling in for the night, feeling the weight of another day added to your life, another imperceptible step in the aging process we all share. Your cells have divided a few more times today. Your telomeres have shortened just a bit. Time has moved in its seemingly inexorable direction, forward, always forward, toward an ending we all know is coming. But what if it didn't have to be that way? What if aging wasn't the immutable law we've always believed it to be? What if, hidden in the genome of a tiny jellyfish, nature has already solved the problem of biological immortality? Tonight, we're going to explore one of biology's most extraordinary discoveries, a creature that can reverse its own life cycle, essentially hitting the reset button on aging whenever it faces death. We'll dive into the cellular mechanisms that make this possible, meet other organisms that have found their own ways to cheat death, and ask whether humanity might one day unlock these secrets for ourselves. But we'll also explore deeper questions. If we could live forever, would we want to? What would immortality mean for identity, for meaning, for the very nature of being human? And perhaps most mysteriously, why would evolution create an immortal creature in the first place? So settle in, let your breathing slow, and prepare to meet a creature that challenges everything we thought we knew about life and death. The immortal jellyfish is waiting to tell its story, a story that has no ending, only endless beginnings. The story begins not in some high-tech laboratory or prestigious research institution, but in the warm waters of the Mediterranean Sea. In the 1880s, marine biologist August Weismann was studying the life cycles of hydrozoans, small, often colonial marine animals related to jellyfish. He noticed something odd about certain species. They seemed to have flexible life cycles, able to revert to earlier stages under certain conditions. But it wasn't until 1988 that Christian Sommer, a German marine biology student, made the discovery that would change our understanding of aging forever. He was conducting research at the marine station of Punta San Pietro in Italy, collecting hydrozoans for study. Among his specimens were small jellyfish of the species Turritopsis dohrnii. Sommer was keeping these jellyfish in observation tanks, watching their life cycles, when something unprecedented happened. Instead of dying after reproduction, as all jellyfish were supposed to do, some of his specimens began to change. They were reversing their development, transforming from adult medusae back into polyps, the juvenile stage of their life cycle. At first, Sommer thought he must be mistaken. This would be like watching a butterfly transform back into a caterpillar, or a frog reverting to a tadpole. It violated everything biologists understood about development. Development was supposed to be a one-way street, a river flowing inevitably toward death. But the more he observed, the more undeniable it became. These jellyfish were genuinely reversing their aging process when threatened by starvation, physical damage, or other environmental stressors. Instead of dying, they were choosing to begin again. The scientific community was skeptical. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and the claim of biological immortality was about as extraordinary as they come. But as more researchers began to study Turritopsis dohrnii, the evidence mounted. This tiny jellyfish, barely visible to the naked eye, had solved one of life's greatest challenges. To understand the miracle of the immortal jellyfish, we first need to understand what it is. Turritopsis dohrnii is tiny. Adult medusa typically measure only 4.5 millimeters across, smaller than a pencil eraser. Its bell is transparent, with a bright red stomach visible in the center, surrounded by up to 90 white tentacles in adult form. It belongs to the class Hydrozoa, which are somewhat different from the larger jellyfish you might encounter at the beach. Hydrozoans have a complex life cycle that alternates between two forms, the polyp and the medusa. The polyp is sessile, attached to a surface like a tiny sea anemone. The medusa is the free-swimming form we recognize as a jellyfish. In most hydrozoans, this life cycle is strictly one-directional. Polyps produce medusa through budding. The medusa swim away, mature, reproduce by releasing eggs and sperm into the water, and then die. The fertilized eggs develop into larvae, which settle and become new polyps. The circle of life continues, but always moving forward. Turritopsis dohrnii follows this pattern too, most of the time. But when faced with stress, starvation, injury, or even just old age, it can do something no other known animal can do. It can reverse the process entirely. The transformation is remarkable to witness, though it happens slowly enough that you need time-lapse photography to truly appreciate it. The jellyfish's bell begins to deteriorate, but instead of dying it starts to contract. The tentacles are reabsorbed. The jellyfish sinks to the ocean floor and attaches itself to a surface. Over the course of several days, its cells begin to change. The specialized cells that made up its bell, its tentacles, its nervous system, they all transform. They become unspecialized, returning to a state similar to stem cells. Then, guided by some biological program we don't fully understand, they reorganize themselves into a polyp. This polyp is genetically identical to the original jellyfish, but it's young again. It can grow, bud off new medusa, and when those medusa face death, they too can transform back into polyps. The cycle can continue indefinitely. As far as we know, there's no limit to how many times this transformation can occur. The process by which Turritopsis dohrnii achieves its immortality is called transdifferentiation, and it's one of the most remarkable phenomena in biology. To understand it, we need to dive deep into the nature of cells and development. In most animals, including humans, cells follow a path of increasing specialization. A stem cell might become a nerve cell, a muscle cell, or a skin cell. Once specialized, these cells are locked into their fate. A nerve cell can't decide to become a muscle cell. This is called terminal differentiation, and it's been considered a fundamental rule of development. But Turritopsis dohrnii breaks this rule. During its transformation, specialized cells can change their identity entirely. A muscle cell can become a nerve cell. A digestive cell can become part of the polyp's outer covering. It's cellular shapeshifting on a scale that shouldn't be possible. The process involves several stages. First, the medusa's cells undergo dedifferentiation. They lose their specialized characteristics and return to a more primitive state. Their gene expression profiles change dramatically. Genes that were silent become active, while others that defined the cell's specialized function shut down. Then comes redifferentiation. These now unspecialized cells take on new identities, appropriate for the polyp stage. Somehow, the jellyfish maintains enough organization during this process to ensure that the new polyp has all the right cell types in all the right places. This isn't just healing or regeneration, which many animals can do. When a salamander regrows a limb, it's using stem cells to create new tissue. But Turritopsis dohrnii is taking existing specialized adult cells and completely reprogramming them. It would be like taking a computer running Windows, somehow reverting it to raw silicon and metal, and then rebuilding it to run a completely different operating system. The molecular mechanisms behind this transformation are still being unraveled. Researchers have identified several genes that seem to be crucial, including genes involved in stem cell maintenance, DNA repair, and cellular stress responses. The jellyfish appears to activate ancient developmental pathways that most animals can only use during embryonic development. One particularly interesting discovery is that Turritopsis dohrnii has multiple copies of genes that protect against oxidative stress and DNA damage. These redundant systems might help maintain genetic integrity through multiple rounds of transformation, preventing the accumulation of mutations that would normally occur with age. To truly appreciate what the immortal jellyfish accomplishes, we need to understand why aging happens in the first place. Every cell in your body contains a kind of molecular clock, structures called telomeres, that cap the ends of your chromosomes like the plastic tips on shoelaces. Each time a cell divides, these telomeres get a little shorter. When they become too short, the cell can no longer divide safely. It enters a state called senescence, cellular old age, or it dies. This is called the Hayflick limit, after Leonard Hayflick, who discovered that normal human cells can only divide about 50 or 70 times before stopping. This limit exists for a good reason. Cells that bypass it and continue dividing indefinitely are what we call cancer. The telomere clock is one of our body's defenses against uncontrolled cell growth, but it also means that aging is built into our cellular machinery. Some cells in our bodies can reset this clock using an enzyme called telomerase, which adds DNA back to shortened telomeres. Stem cells have active telomeres, which is why they can continue dividing throughout our lives. So do cancer cells, which is part of what makes them dangerous. But most adult cells have their telomerase genes switched off. Turritopsis dohrnii appears to reactivate telomerase during its transformation. Its cells regain the ability to divide indefinitely, resetting their cellular clocks to zero. But unlike cancer cells which divide chaotically, the jellyfish's cells transform in a coordinated fashion, maintaining the organization necessary for life. But telomeres aren't the only aspect of aging that the immortal jellyfish must overcome. There's also the epigenome, the system of chemical modifications that control which genes are active in each cell. As we age, our epigenome changes. Some genes that should be active get silenced, while others that should be quiet become active. These epigenetic changes are now considered one of the primary hallmarks of aging. Recent research suggests that Turritopsis dohrnii doesn't just reset its telomeres, it resets its entire epigenome. The chemical marks that accumulate on DNA with age are erased. The jellyfish returns to a truly young state at the molecular level, not just in appearance. This is remarkable because epigenetic marks are usually very stable. They're how a skin cell remembers to be a skin cell even after dividing. They're part of cellular identity. But the immortal jellyfish can erase these marks and write new ones, changing cellular identity entirely. Scientists studying this process have found that the jellyfish activates genes normally only used during embryonic development. Genes with names like SOX, MyC, and WNT, master regulators that control cell fate. It's as if the jellyfish has retained access to its embryonic toolkit throughout its adult life, able to rebuild itself from scratch whenever necessary. All of this transformation requires enormous energy, changing cell types, reorganizing tissues, resetting molecular clocks. These aren't simple processes. The jellyfish essentially digests parts of itself to fuel the transformation, recycling its own proteins and other molecules. During the transformation, the jellyfish is vulnerable. It can't swim, can't eat, can't escape predators. It's a dangerous gamble, trading immediate survival chances for long-term immortality. The fact that evolution has maintained this ability suggests that at least for Turritopsis dohrnii, the benefits outweigh the costs. But why? What evolutionary advantage does biological immortality provide? The answer might lie in the jellyfish's ecological niche. Turritopsis dohrnii is found in oceans worldwide, having spread from its original habitat through ballast water in ships. Its ability to revert to the polyp stage might allow it to survive adverse conditions that would kill other jellyfish. When food is scarce, when the water temperature changes, when predation pressure is high, the jellyfish can essentially pause its life, waiting as a polyp until conditions improve. It's the ultimate survival strategy. If you can't survive as an adult, become a child again and wait for better times. Turritopsis, dohrnii isn't entirely alone in its defiance of death. Nature has produced other organisms with extraordinary longevity, each achieving it through different mechanisms. The hydra, a tiny freshwater polyp, appears to be biologically immortal through a different strategy. Instead of transforming, it maintains a perfect balance between cell growth and cell death. Its stem cells show no signs of aging, continuously replacing old cells with new ones. Some researchers have kept hydras in laboratories for decades with no signs of deterioration. The secret seems to be that hydras express high levels of a gene called FOXO, which is involved in stress resistance and stem cell maintenance. Interestingly, variations in the same gene are associated with extreme longevity in humans. Centenarians often have particular versions of FOXO that seem to provide protection against age-related diseases. Then there's the planarian flatworm, which achieves a kind of immortality through regeneration. Cut a planarian into pieces, and each piece can regrow into a complete worm. They can regenerate their entire bodies from tiny fragments, including their brains. Like the immortal jellyfish, they maintain active telomerase throughout their bodies, allowing indefinite cell division. But perhaps the most extreme example of biological immortality is found in bacteria and other single-celled organisms. When a bacterium divides, which one is the parent and which is the offspring? In a sense, the original bacterium never dies, it just becomes two bacteria. The bacterial lineage is unbroken, since the origin of life billions of years ago. Some trees also challenge our concepts of mortality. The Pando colony in Utah is a clonal colony of quaking aspen that's estimated to be 80,000 years old. The individual trees live and die, but the root system persists, sending up new shoots indefinitely. Is the colony immortal, or is each tree mortal? The question challenges our very definition of what constitutes an individual organism. Beyond the truly immortal, there's a category of organisms that age so slowly they might as well be immortal from a human perspective. Scientists call this negligible senescence, aging that's so minimal, it's barely detectable. The Greenland shark can live over 400 years, possibly up to 500. They don't reach sexual maturity until they're 150 years old. Their extreme longevity seems to be related to their slow metabolism and cold environment, but the molecular mechanisms aren't fully understood. Bowhead whales can live over 200 years. They have unusual cancer resistance, with multiple copies of genes that repair DNA and suppress tumors. Given that they have thousands of times more cells than humans and live twice as long, they should have much higher cancer rates. Instead, they almost never get cancer. Understanding their protective mechanisms could revolutionize human medicine. The naked mole rat, despite being a mammal like us, shows remarkable resistance to aging. They can live over 30 years, 10 times longer than similar-sized rodents. They're immune to cancer, maintain fertility throughout their lives, and show no increase in mortality rate as they age. Their cells are resistant to becoming senescent, and they maintain protein quality control that usually deteriorates with age. Even some birds demonstrate negligible senescence. The wandering albatross shows no decline in reproductive success, even into its 60s. Storm petrels, Arctic terns, and some parrots maintain youthful vigor throughout their long lives. They seem to have evolved mechanisms to prevent or repair age-related damage. The discovery of biological immortality in nature has intensified humanity's ancient quest to defeat aging. If a tiny jellyfish can do it, why not us? Research into the immortal jellyfish has already yielded insights that might be applicable to human medicine. The pathways involved in transdifferentiation are similar to those that go wrong in cancer. Understanding how the jellyfish controls these pathways so precisely might lead to new cancer treatments. The study of cellular reprogramming in Turritopsis dohrnii contributed to the development of induced pluripotent stem cells, iPSCs, adult cells that have been reprogrammed back to a stem cell state. This technology, which won the Nobel Prize in 2012, allows scientists to create patient-specific stem cells for regenerative medicine. Some researchers are investigating whether limited transdifferentiation might be induced in human cells to treat degenerative diseases. If we could convince damaged heart cells to transform into healthy ones, or aged neurons to rejuvenate themselves, it could revolutionize medicine. The biotechnology company Calico, funded by Google, is specifically researching the biology of aging with the goal of extending human lifespan. They're studying organisms like the naked mole rat and the immortal jellyfish to understand how nature has solved the problem of aging. Other approaches include telomerase activation. Several companies are working on drugs that could safely activate telomerase in human cells, potentially extending cellular lifespan without causing cancer. Senescent cell removal. Drugs called senolytics can selectively kill senescent cells, the aged cells that accumulate in our bodies and cause inflammation. Early trials show promise in improving health span. Epigenetic reprogramming. Researchers are exploring whether the epigenetic clock can be reset in living organisms. Recent experiments have successfully reversed aging markers in mice' eyes, restoring youthful function. Periabiosis. Young blood transfusions have shown remarkable rejuvenating effects in old mice. Human trials are beginning, though the ethics are complex. The immortal jellyfish raises fascinating ecological questions. If it can potentially live forever, why isn't the ocean completely full of them? The answer reveals the difference between potential immortality and practical immortality. While Turritopsis dohrnii can reverse aging, it's still vulnerable to predation, disease, and accidents. Most immortal jellyfish probably get eaten long before they need to use their transformation ability. In fact, the transformation ability might be relatively rare in the wild. Laboratory conditions, where scientists can induce transformation by stressing the jellyfish in controlled ways, are very different from ocean conditions. We don't know how often wild jellyfish successfully complete the transformation. There's also the question of identity. When a jellyfish transforms back into a polyp and then grows into a new medusa, is it the same individual? The genes are identical, but the nervous system has been completely reorganized. Does the new jellyfish have any memory of its previous life? Almost certainly not, given how simple their nervous systems are. In what sense then is it immortal? This touches on philosophical questions about identity and continuity. If every cell in your body could be replaced, if your brain could be completely rebuilt, would you still be you? The immortal jellyfish suggests that biological continuity might be very different things. Why would evolution produce an immortal organism? This question has puzzled biologists since the discovery of Turritopsis dohrnii. One theory is that immortality isn't the primary adaptation, it's a side effect of the jellyfish's complex life cycle. The ability to transform between polyp and medusa stages might have evolved for other reasons, with immortality as an accidental bonus. Another possibility is that in the jellyfish's ecological niche, the ability to restart when conditions are unfavorable provides a significant survival advantage. Unlike organisms that must weather bad conditions or die, Turritopsis dohrnii can essentially pause its life and wait. But there's a deeper evolutionary puzzle. Most organisms age and die, and evolutionary theory suggests this is actually advantageous for the species. Death clears out old individuals, making room for new ones with potentially beneficial mutations. Sexual reproduction shuffles genes, creating variation that natural selection can act upon. An immortal organism that reproduces clonally, as the polyp stage does, might seem to be an evolutionary dead end. Without death and sex to create variation, how can the species adapt to changing conditions? The answer might be that Turritopsis dohrnii gets the best of both worlds. It can reproduce sexually as a medusa, creating genetic variation, but it can also reproduce clonally as a polyp, preserving successful genetic combinations. And when conditions change, it can transform between forms, essentially shape-shifting to meet new challenges. The immortal jellyfish forces us to confront fundamental questions about the nature of death. Is death a biological necessity, or just a very common evolutionary strategy? For most of human history, death has been considered inevitable. even necessary. Philosophers from Socrates to Heidegger have argued that death gives life meaning. The finite nature of existence forces us to make choices, to value our time, to create meaning in the face of mortality. But what if death isn't necessary? What if it's just a biological problem that evolution hasn't solved for most organisms? The immortal jellyfish suggests that death might be more of a feature than a bug, useful for most species, but not absolutely required. This has profound implications for how we think about human mortality. If aging is a solvable biological problem, should we solve it? The question is moving from philosophy to practical ethics as life extension technology advances. Some argue that defeating aging would be the greatest achievement in human history, preventing enormous suffering and allowing people to develop wisdom and skills over centuries. Others worry about overpopulation, social stagnation, and the loss of meaning that might come with immortality. The jellyfish that emerges from the polyp has the same genes as the one that transformed, but is it the same individual? This might seem like a purely philosophical question, with no relevance to humans, but advances in regenerative medicine are making it practical. If we could replace aged organs with young ones grown from our own cells, if we could reset our epigenetic clocks, if we could regenerate our brains, would we still be ourselves? The question becomes even more complex when we consider that our bodies are already constantly replacing themselves. Most of your cells are younger than you are. Your skeleton completely replaces itself every 10 years. The atoms that make up your body are constantly being exchanged with the environment. What maintains your identity through all these changes? Is it the pattern of connections in your brain, your memories, some ineffable soul? The immortal jellyfish, with its complete transformation and reorganization, suggests that biological continuity might be more flexible than we imagine. If humans achieved the kind of biological immortality that Turritopsis dohrnii has, the social implications would be staggering. Would society stagnate? If the same individuals lived for centuries, would young people ever get opportunities if their elders never retired? How would relationships work if some people chose immortality and others didn't? Science fiction has explored these questions extensively, but the immortal jellyfish makes them more than theoretical. We might need to completely restructure society to accommodate extreme longevity. Education, careers, relationships, governance, everything would need to be reimagined. There are also questions of justice and equality. If life extension technology is developed, who gets access? Would it be available to everyone, or only the wealthy? Could we accept a world where some people live for centuries while others get only the traditional 70? Some futurists argue that these problems are solvable, that we shouldn't let them stop us from pursuing life extension. They point out that every major medical advance, from antibiotics to organ transplants, raised similar concerns, but ultimately benefited humanity. Others argue that death serves important functions we don't fully appreciate. It ensures generational turnover, prevents the permanent concentration of power, and might be essential for cultural and technological progress. I first learned about the immortal jellyfish during a marine biology course in college. The professor mentioned it almost in passing, as an interesting quirk of nature, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Here was a creature that had solved the problem that haunts every human life, not through technology, not through medicine, but through its own biology. It seemed like magic, like something from mythology rather than science. I spent weeks reading every paper I could find about Turritopsis dohrnii. The more I learned, the more amazed I became. This wasn't just regeneration or extended longevity. This was true biological immortality, the ability to reverse aging itself. But what struck me most was how humble this immortal creature was. Not a mighty dragon or a divine being, but a tiny translucent jellyfish, barely visible to the naked eye. It seemed to mock human pretensions about the nature of life and death. Learning about the immortal jellyfish changed how I think about my own mortality. On one hand, it made death seem less inevitable, more like a biological constraint that might someday be overcome. On the other hand, it made me more aware of the preciousness of our limited time. The jellyfish pays a price for its immortality. Each transformation erases its previous existence. It gets to continue living, but not as the same individual. It's immortality without memory, existence without experience accumulation. Would I want that kind of immortality? To live forever but forget everything with each renewal. It seems more like serial mortality than true immortality. Each transformation is both a death and a birth. This made me realize that what we really want isn't just biological continuity. We want to live forever as ourselves, with our memories, our relationships, our accumulated wisdom. The immortal jellyfish achieves one but not the other. Paradoxically, studying an immortal creature has made me more accepting of mortality. The jellyfish shows that biological immortality is possible, but also what it costs. Human life is meaningful partly because it's finite. We make choices because we can't do everything. We value relationships because we know they won't last forever. We create art, build civilizations, and strive to leave legacies because we know we won't be here forever. The immortal jellyfish doesn't do any of these things. It just exists, transforms, exists again. It has no history, no progress, no meaning beyond survival itself. It's immortal, but not alive in the way humans understand life. This isn't to say we shouldn't pursue life extension or try to cure aging. Reducing suffering and extending healthy life are noble goals. But the immortal jellyfish reminds us that quantity of life and quality of life are different things. Scientists around the world are studying Turritopsis dohrnii, trying to understand its secrets. Several research groups have successfully cultured the jellyfish in laboratories, allowing detailed study of its transformation process. Japanese researchers have sequenced its genome and are comparing it to mortal jellyfish species to identify the genes responsible for immortality. They found that Turritopsis dohrnii has duplications of genes involved in DNA repair and protection against oxidative stress. Italian scientists are studying the cellular mechanisms of transdifferentiation, trying to understand how cells change their identity so dramatically. They've identified key signaling pathways that trigger and control the transformation. American researchers are investigating whether similar pathways exist in other animals, including humans. While we can't transform like the jellyfish, we might have dormant cellular capabilities that could be awakened. Chinese scientists are exploring the jellyfish's microbiome, the community of bacteria that live in and on it. These bacteria might play a role in the transformation process, producing signals or nutrients that facilitate cellular reprogramming. The research into Turritopsis dohrnii is already yielding practical applications. Regenerative medicine. Understanding transdifferentiation could help us develop better treatments for organ damage and degenerative diseases. If we could convince cells to change their identity in controlled ways, we might be able to repair damaged hearts, regenerate neurons, or restore youthful function to aged tissues. Cancer treatment. The jellyfish's ability to control cellular transformation without causing cancer could provide insights into tumor suppression. Several cancer researchers are studying how Turritopsis dohrnii maintains genomic stability through multiple rounds of transformation. Stem cell technology. The jellyfish's natural cellular reprogramming is more efficient and complete than our current methods of creating induced pluripotent stem cells. Understanding its mechanisms could improve stem cell therapies. Aging research. Even if we can't achieve immortality, understanding how the jellyfish resets its cellular clocks could help us slow or reverse aspects of aging. Several biotech companies are developing drugs based on pathways discovered in immortal organisms. While we're unlikely to achieve jellyfish-style immortality, research into Turritopsis dohrnii and other long-lived organisms is contributing to more realistic life extension goals. Health span extension. Rather than trying to live forever, the focus is on extending the healthy, productive portion of life. If we could maintain youthful vigor into our 100s or beyond, it would transform human society. Cellular rejuvenation. Techniques inspired by the jellyfish's transformation might allow us to rejuvenate specific organs or tissues without complete transformation. Partial cellular reprogramming is already showing promise in animal studies. Preventive interventions. Understanding the mechanisms of aging at the molecular level allows us to intervene before damage accumulates. Like the jellyfish maintaining its telomeres, we might be able to maintain our cellular health indefinitely. Personalized longevity. Different people age at different rates due to genetic and environmental factors. Studying organisms like Turritopsis dohrnii helps us understand these differences and develop personalized interventions. As Turritopsis dohrnii spreads globally, carried by ships' ballast water, it's becoming an invasive species in some regions. Its immortality makes it particularly successful at colonizing new habitats. Once established, it's nearly impossible to eliminate. This raises concerns about ecological balance. An immortal organism that can also reproduce sexually and asexually has significant advantages over mortal competitors. Some marine biologists worry about the long-term impact on ocean ecosystems. Climate change might also affect the jellyfish's distribution and transformation ability. Warmer oceans might expand its habitat, but changed chemistry might affect its cellular processes. The immortal jellyfish might be vulnerable to anthropogenic changes despite its biological immortality. The discovery of the immortal jellyfish has influenced culture in subtle ways. It appears in science fiction, poetry, and art as a symbol of renewal and persistence. Video games feature immortal jellyfish as power-ups or mystical creatures. In Japan, where much of the research is conducted, Turritopsis dohrnii has become a cultural icon. It's featured in educational materials, appears on stamps, and has inspired manga and anime. The idea of renewal and transformation resonates with Japanese concepts of rebirth and impermanence. The jellyfish has also influenced philosophy and bioethics. Conferences on life extension inevitably reference it. Bioethicists use it as a test case for discussing the implications of radical life extension. It's become a touchstone for debates about the future of human mortality. The potential economic impact of immortality research is enormous. The global anti-aging industry is already worth hundreds of billions of dollars, and that's without any true age-reversing treatments. If therapies inspired by Turritopsis dohrnii prove successful, they could create entirely new economic sectors. Longevity insurance, century-long mortgages, and career planning for 200-year lifespans would all become necessary. But there would also be costs. Pension systems would need complete restructuring. Healthcare costs might explode if people live longer, but still experience age-related diseases. The job market would transform if people worked for centuries rather than decades. Some economists argue that extreme longevity would be economically beneficial, allowing people to accumulate more knowledge and skills. Others worry about wealth concentration and reduced opportunities for younger generations. The immortal jellyfish forces us to reconsider what death actually is. Is it the cessation of biological functions, the loss of consciousness, the end of identity? Turritopsis dohrnii experiences all of these during its transformation, yet it continues. Perhaps death is better understood as a spectrum rather than a binary state. The jellyfish exists somewhere on this spectrum, not fully immortal in the way we imagine it, but not mortal in the traditional sense either. This has implications for human medicine. As we develop more sophisticated life support and resuscitation techniques, the boundary between life and death becomes increasingly blurry. The immortal jellyfish suggests this boundary might be more fluid than we thought. When a jellyfish transforms from medusa to polyp and back to medusa, how many lives has it lived? Is it one continuous life with different phases, or multiple lives sharing the same genetic material? The question becomes even more complex when we consider that the polyp can bud off multiple medusa. Are these clones part of the same individual, or separate beings? The immortal jellyfish challenges our concept of individuality itself. This isn't just philosophical speculation. As we develop technologies like brain uploading, cloning, and radical life extension, we'll need to grapple with these questions practically. The jellyfish offers a natural experiment in the flexibility of identity. If life can continue indefinitely, what is its purpose? The immortal jellyfish exists simply to exist, transforming endlessly without progress or goal. Is that enough? Humans have always found meaning in the face of mortality. We create, love, and strive because we know our time is limited. Would we still do these things if we could live forever? Would we need new sources of meaning? The jellyfish suggests that biological immortality might not be the blessing we imagine. Without memory, without progress, without meaning beyond survival, eternal life might be more of a curse than a gift. As we near the end of our journey with the immortal jellyfish, imagine yourself floating in the ocean where it lives. The water is warm, clear, infinitely deep. Around you, countless tiny jellyfish pulse through the water, each one carrying the secret of immortality, but they don't know they're immortal. They have no conception of death to escape from. They simply exist, moment to moment, transformation to transformation, without past or future, without fear or hope. We float here with them, conscious of our mortality in a way they never could be. We know that our cells are aging, our telomeres shortening, our epigenetic clocks ticking forward, yet we also know something they don't, that existence has meaning beyond mere continuation. The immortal jellyfish achieves what alchemists and emperors spent fortunes seeking, what conquistadors crossed oceans to find, what scientists labor in laboratories to create, yet it has no awareness of its achievement. It cannot appreciate the gift it possesses. Perhaps this is the ultimate irony, that immortality without consciousness is meaningless, while consciousness without immortality creates meaning. We are mortal beings who can contemplate eternity, while the immortal jellyfish exists in an eternal present without contemplation. Watching these jellyfish pulse through the water, we're confronted with a profound paradox. They have solved the problem of death, but not the problem of life. They continue but don't progress. They persist but don't remember. They are immortal but not eternal in any meaningful sense. This paradox reflects something deep about the nature of existence. Perhaps true immortality isn't about biological continuation but about creating something that outlasts our biology. Every piece of art, every scientific discovery, every act of kindness ripples outward through time, achieving a kind of immortality that the jellyfish, for all its cellular wizardry, cannot match. The immortal jellyfish reminds us that there are different kinds of forever. There's the forever of endless repetition, the jellyfish, transforming again and again, each cycle erasing the last. And there's the forever of impact, the way a single human life can change the course of history, inspire generations, or create beauty that resonates across centuries. As we float in this imaginary ocean, surrounded by immortal creatures, we might feel a strange gratitude for our own mortality. Our limits give shape to our lives. The knowledge that our time is finite makes each moment precious. The fact that we age and change means we can grow and learn. The immortal jellyfish exists outside of time in a way, without memory, without accumulation of experience. Each transformation returns it to a beginning that's indistinguishable from any other beginning. It has escaped linear time but at the cost of existing in a kind of circular prison. We humans live in linear time, moving from birth toward death, accumulating memories, relationships, and experiences along the way. This journey might end, but it has direction and meaning. There are stories being written, while the immortal jellyfish is a sentence repeated endlessly. The ocean itself offers a metaphor for thinking about immortality. Water is effectively immortal. The same water molecules have existed for billions of years, cycling through clouds, rain, rivers, and seas. Yet each wave is unique, temporary, unrepeatable. Perhaps we are like waves on this ocean of existence. We rise from the water, take form, crash upon the shore, and return to the sea. The wave ends, but the water continues. Our individual forms are temporary, but we're part of something larger that persists. The immortal jellyfish has found a way to be both wave and water, to maintain its form, while cycling through transformations, but in doing so, it might have lost something essential. The beauty of a wave is partly in its transience. Would a permanent wave still be beautiful, or would it become a static monument to what a wave once was? Unlike the jellyfish, whose transformation is biological and involuntary, we humans have the power to choose our transformations. We can't reverse our aging or return to polyp form, but we can reinvent ourselves psychologically, spiritually, creatively. Every time we learn something new, we transform. Every time we overcome a challenge, we become something we weren't before. Every act of creation, every moment of genuine connection with another person, every insight that changes how we see the world, these are our transformations. And unlike the jellyfish's transformation, which erases what came before, our transformations build upon each other. We accumulate rather than reset. We become more complex, more nuanced, more ourselves with each change. Our mortality enables a kind of growth that immortality might prevent. As we develop technologies inspired by the immortal jellyfish, stem cell therapies, genetic engineering, cellular reprogramming, we face choices our ancestors never imagined. Should we extend human life? Should we reverse aging? Should we pursue biological immortality? The jellyfish offers no moral guidance, only possibility. It shows us that aging isn't inevitable, that death isn't necessary, that biology is more flexible than we thought, but it also shows us the potential emptiness of mere continuation without purpose. Perhaps the goal shouldn't be to become immortal like the jellyfish, but to take what we can learn from it while remaining human, to extend our healthy years without losing our humanity, to reduce suffering from age-related diseases without eliminating the growth that comes from knowing our time is limited. As our meditation in this imaginary ocean comes to an end, we might feel a deep peace settling over us. The immortal jellyfish has shown us something profound, not just about the flexibility of biology, but about the nature of existence itself, life and death, youth and age, beginning and ending. These aren't fixed opposites, but part of a continuous cycle. The jellyfish embodies this cycle in its very being, transforming endlessly between forms. We embody it differently, through the cycle of generations, each one building on the last. There's comfort in knowing that life has found so many different solutions to the challenge of existence. Some organisms, like the jellyfish, achieve immortality through transformation. Others, like the hydra, through perfect regeneration. Still others, like us, through consciousness and culture, passing on not just genes but ideas, values and dreams. Our journey with Turritopsis dohrnii has taken us from the warm waters where it was discovered to the cutting edge of aging research, from cellular mechanisms to philosophical implications, from scientific facts to existential questions. We've learned that biological immortality is real, not a myth or a dream, but an actual phenomenon that exists in nature. The immortal jellyfish proves that aging isn't a fundamental law of physics, but a biological process that can be reversed, at least in some organisms. We've discovered the mechanism, transdifferentiation, the ability of specialized cells to transform into completely different cell types. This process, impossible in most animals, is routine for Turritopsis dohrnii. It can rebuild itself from scratch, as many times as necessary. We've explored how this discovery is influencing human medicine, from stem cell research to cancer treatment, to aging interventions. The jellyfish has become an unlikely teacher, showing us possibilities we never imagined. But perhaps most importantly, we've grappled with what immortality really means. The jellyfish shows us that living forever isn't the same as being immortal in the way humans conceive it. Without memory, without progress, without meaning beyond survival, biological immortality might be a hollow victory. Despite all we've learned, mysteries remain. We still don't fully understand how the jellyfish controls its transformation so precisely. We don't know how often it happens in the wild. We don't know if there are limits to how many times it can transform. More fundamentally, We don't understand why this ability evolved, what evolutionary pressure produced an immortal organism, why this particular species and not others. How does immortality affect the jellyfish's ecology and evolution? These mysteries remind us that nature still holds secrets, that even in our age of genomic sequencing and molecular biology, life can surprise us. A tiny translucent jellyfish has challenged our most basic assumptions about living and dying. What does the immortal jellyfish mean for humanity's future? It's too early to say for certain, but the possibilities are both exciting and sobering. In the near term, research inspired by Turritopsis dohrnii will likely lead to better treatments for age-related diseases. We might be able to rejuvenate specific organs, reverse certain aspects of aging, or prevent cellular senescence. These advances could add decades of healthy life. In the longer term, we might achieve more dramatic life extension, not jellyfish-style immortality, but perhaps centuries of healthy life. This would require not just biological interventions but social, economic, and psychological adaptations. But the jellyfish also warns us about the limitations of biological immortality. Living forever isn't meaningful without the consciousness to appreciate it, the memory to accumulate experience, and the purpose to guide existence. As we pursue life extension, we must also consider what makes life worth extending. For each of us individually, the immortal jellyfish offers a different kind of lesson. It reminds us that the boundaries we take for granted, between life and death, youth and age, possible and impossible, are more fluid than they appear. It challenges us to think about what we really want when we wish for immortality. Is it more time, freedom from disease, the ability to see how history unfolds, or is it something deeper, a desire for significance, for our lives to matter beyond their biological duration? The jellyfish achieves one kind of immortality through biological transformation. We might achieve another kind through the impact we have on the world and the people around us. Every life that touches another achieves a kind of continuation. Every contribution to human knowledge or culture becomes part of humanity's collective immortality. As we conclude our exploration of the immortal jellyfish, we might find ourselves in a place of peaceful acceptance. Death remains a reality for humans, at least for now, but understanding that it's not biologically inevitable, that nature has found ways around it, somehow makes it less frightening. The jellyfish shows us that life is more creative, more flexible, more persistent than we imagined. If a tiny cnidarian can reverse its aging and transform back to youth, what other miracles might be possible? What other assumptions about life might be wrong? At the same time, the jellyfish reminds us that immortality isn't everything. A life without memory, without growth, without meaning might continue forever, but wouldn't be a life in any sense we value. Quality matters as much as quantity. The depth of experience matters as much as its duration. Perhaps the deepest emotion that emerges from contemplating the immortal jellyfish is gratitude. Gratitude that such wonders exist in nature. Gratitude that we have consciousness to appreciate them. Gratitude for the scientists who discover and study these miracles. And yes, even gratitude for our mortality, which gives shape and meaning to our lives. We are privileged to live in an age where we can understand the molecular mechanisms of immortality, where we can sequence genomes and manipulate cells, where the secrets of life are gradually being revealed. We stand at a unique moment in history, when the ancient dream of conquering death is becoming a scientific possibility. But we're also privileged to be mortal, to experience the poignancy of finite existence, to know that our time is limited, and therefore precious. The immortal jellyfish, for all its biological triumph, will never experience the bittersweet beauty of a sunset, knowing it might be one of the last we see, the deep joy of time spent with loved ones knowing it won't last forever, or the satisfaction of completing something despite the constraints of time. As we leave our imaginary ocean and return to the solid ground of our daily lives, we carry with us the image of the immortal jellyfish, small, translucent, pulsing through the water in its endless dance of transformation. It will continue its cycle long after we're gone, dying and being reborn, transforming from medusa to polyp and back again, carrying its ancient secret through the centuries. It doesn't know it's immortal. It doesn't know we've studied it, learned from it, been inspired and troubled by it. It simply continues. And we continue too, in our different way, mortal, but conscious, limited but meaningful, aging but growing. We can't transform our bodies back to youth like the jellyfish, but we can transform our understanding, our perspectives, our contributions to the world. The immortal jellyfish teaches us that nature is full of possibilities we haven't imagined, that the rules we think are absolute might just be common patterns, that life is more creative and persistent than we ever dreamed. But it also teaches us that immortality isn't a simple blessing, that continuation without consciousness is empty, that transformation without memory is repetition, that biological persistence without psychological continuity isn't the immortality we seek. What we really want isn't to live forever like the jellyfish, cycling through the same transformations endlessly. We want to live fully, consciously, meaningfully. We want our lives to matter, to contribute, to connect. We want not just to persist, but to flourish. As we drift towards sleep, perhaps thinking about the tiny jellyfish pulsing through dark oceans, transforming endlessly between death and rebirth, we might feel a deep peace settling over us. We are part of the same remarkable phenomenon of life that produced the immortal jellyfish, the same creative force that found a way to reverse aging in a cnidarian flows through us. We share the same DNA code, the same cellular machinery, the same spark of existence. We might not be immortal, but we are alive. We might age, but we grow. We might die, but we contribute to something larger that continues. We are waves on the ocean of existence, temporary but beautiful, finite but meaningful, mortal but magnificent. The immortal jellyfish will continue its endless cycle in the ocean's depths, a living symbol of life's persistence and creativity. It has transcended death in its own simple way, achieving what humans have dreamed of since we first became aware of our mortality. But we have transcended mortality in our own way, through consciousness, through culture, through connection. Every idea we share, every life we touch, every contribution we make to the vast human project continues beyond our biological existence. The jellyfish is immortal but unconscious. We are mortal but aware. Perhaps that's the trade-off life offers. You can have immortality or consciousness, but not both. The jellyfish chose one path. We chose another. As you drift off to sleep tonight, remember the immortal jellyfish, pulsing through the darkness, dying and being reborn again and again. But also remember that you possess something it never will, the ability to appreciate the profound mystery of existence, to find meaning in mortality, to create something beautiful in the time you have. You might not live forever, but you are alive right now, conscious, aware, capable of understanding and appreciating the wonder of an immortal jellyfish. And that consciousness, that awareness, that capacity for wonder, that's its own kind of immortality. Sleep well, mortal dreamer. Tomorrow you'll be one day older, your telomeres a bit shorter, your cellular clocks having ticked forward, but you'll also be one day richer in experience, in memory, in the accumulated treasure of conscious existence. The immortal jellyfish will still be pulsing through the ocean, transforming endlessly, going nowhere. But you'll be moving forward, growing, becoming, living a mortal life that pulses with meaning. And in that mortality, in that precious, limited, irreplaceable existence, lies a beauty that no amount of biological immortality could ever match. Sweet dreams. And remember, you are the universe's way of understanding itself, including understanding the tiny, translucent, immortal jellyfish that holds the secret of eternal life but can never know it. The journey ends here, but the wonder continues. The jellyfish keeps transforming. Life keeps persisting, and you keep becoming more yourself with each passing moment. Mortal, but magical. Limited, but luminous. Aging, but alive. Throughout human history, every culture has created myths about immortality. The Greek gods with their ambrosia and nectar, the Chinese with their peaches of immortality, an elixir of life, the Hindus with their amrita, the nectar of the gods, the Norse with their golden apples of Idun. These stories reflected humanity's deepest desire to escape the inevitability of death. But now, with Turritopsis, dohrnii, mythology has become reality, not in the way our ancestors imagined, no magical fountains or divine intervention, but through the patient work of evolution, through cellular mechanisms and molecular pathways. The immortal jellyfish is more miraculous than any myth because it's real, observable, studiable. This collision of myth and reality has profound cultural implications. We're the first generation in human history to know that biological immortality actually exists, not as a story, not as a hope, but as a scientific fact swimming in our oceans. This knowledge changes everything: our relationship with death, our understanding of life, our vision of what's possible. Artists have begun incorporating the immortal jellyfish into their work as a symbol of renewal and persistence. Musicians compose pieces inspired by its transformation cycle. Writers use it as a metaphor for rebirth, second chances, infinite possibilities. The jellyfish has entered our collective imagination not as myth, but as reality that's more fantastic than fiction. Religious and philosophical communities have had to grapple with the implications of biological immortality. If death isn't biologically necessary, what does that mean for beliefs about the afterlife, the soul, the meaning of existence? Some religious thinkers see the immortal jellyfish as confirmation of divine creativity, evidence that God built renewal and resurrection into the fabric of life itself. Others worry that the pursuit of biological immortality represents hubris, an attempt to usurp divine prerogatives. Buddhist and Hindu philosophers find the jellyfish's cycle of transformation resonant with concepts of rebirth and reincarnation. The jellyfish dies and is reborn, but without karma, without progression toward enlightenment. It's samsara without the possibility of moksha, eternal cycling without release. Western philosophers debate whether the jellyfish is truly immortal, or whether each transformation represents a death and birth. The continuity of genes without continuity of experience raises questions about what we mean by individual existence. Is the jellyfish immortal, or is it a series of mortal beings sharing the same genetic template? Bioethicists use the jellyfish to explore scenarios about human life extension. If we could transform like the jellyfish, would we have the right to do so? Would we have the right not to? Would allowing some people to achieve biological immortality while others couldn't create an unacceptable inequality? The immortal jellyfish has transformed how we teach biology. It's become a gateway for discussing aging, cellular biology, evolution, and ecology. Students who might find these topics abstract become engaged when learning about a real creature that defies death. Elementary school children learn about life cycles using the jellyfish as an example of nature's flexibility. Instead of the simple linear progression of birth, growth, reproduction, death, they discover that life can be cyclical, reversible, creative. High school biology classes use Turritopsis dohrnii to teach cellular differentiation and stem cell biology. The jellyfish makes abstract concepts concrete. Students can see that cellular fate isn't always fixed, that specialization can be reversed, that biology is more flexible than textbooks suggest. University courses explore the jellyfish from multiple angles: molecular biology, ecology, evolution, philosophy. It's become a case study in interdisciplinary thinking, showing how a single organism can illuminate multiple fields of knowledge. Medical schools use the jellyfish to inspire future doctors to think beyond current limitations. If a jellyfish can reverse aging, what might be possible for human medicine? The impossible becomes a challenge rather than a barrier. The immortal jellyfish has inspired a new field of bioengineering focused on cellular flexibility and regeneration. Scientists are developing synthetic biological systems that can transform like Turritopsis dohrnii, with applications ranging from self-healing materials to adaptive medical implants. One promising area is programmable cells, engineered cells that can change their function in response to signals. Like the jellyfish transforming from medusa to polyp, these cells could shift from producing insulin to producing antibodies, or from detecting cancer to destroying it. Researchers are creating biological circuits inspired by the jellyfish's transformation pathways. These circuits could be inserted into human cells to trigger regeneration, reverse damage, or even reverse aging in specific tissues. The field of synthetic biology is designing organisms with jellyfish-like immortality for industrial applications. Bacteria that can reset themselves when they accumulate damage, maintaining productivity indefinitely. Yeast that can transform between different metabolic states, producing different products on demand. Just as the jellyfish preserves its genetic information through cycles of transformation, computer scientists are developing storage systems that can regenerate and refresh themselves. DNA data storage, where digital information is encoded in synthetic DNA, takes inspiration from the jellyfish's ability to maintain genetic integrity through multiple transformations. Researchers are developing error correction mechanisms based on the jellyfish's DNA repair systems. Quantum computers face the challenge of maintaining coherent states in noisy environments, similar to how the jellyfish maintains organized transformation in the chaotic ocean. Solutions inspired by biological immortality might enable more stable quantum computation. The concept of digital immortality, preserving human consciousness in digital form, draws parallels with the jellyfish's transformation. If the jellyfish can rebuild itself from scattered cells, might we one day rebuild consciousness from preserved information? The immortal jellyfish's abilities could revolutionize agriculture and environmental management. Immortal crops. Scientists are investigating whether crop plants could be engineered with jellyfish-like regeneration abilities. Imagine wheat that could revert to seed form during drought, then regrow when water returns, or fruit trees that could reverse aging, maintaining peak productivity indefinitely. Bioremediation. Organisms engineered with transformation abilities could clean up pollution more effectively. When they accumulate too many toxins, they could transform, sequestering the pollutants and regenerating clean cells to continue working. Coral reef restoration. Coral faces bleaching and death from climate change. Understanding the jellyfish's transformation might help engineer corals that can revert to a resistant polyp stage during heat stress, then regenerate when conditions improve. Forestry management. Trees with controlled transformation abilities could be harvested repeatedly without replanting. They could revert to a juvenile state after cutting, regrowing rapidly from the same root system. As research into the immortal jellyfish influences medical treatments, patients are beginning to benefit from discoveries inspired by this tiny creature. Sarah, diagnosed with heart failure at 45, received an experimental treatment using cellular reprogramming techniques derived from jellyfish research. They told me they were going to make my heart cells younger, she says. It sounded like science fiction, but 6 months later, my heart function has improved beyond what anyone expected. Michael, a veteran with spinal cord injury, participated in a trial using transdifferentiation to convert scar tissue into functional neurons. I know it came from studying jellyfish, he explains. This tiny creature that can rebuild itself gave scientists the idea that maybe human cells could change too. I'm not walking yet, but I have sensation I haven't felt in years. Emma, age 92, enrolled in a study using jellyfish-inspired compounds to reverse cellular aging. I don't want to live forever, she clarifies, but if I can maintain my independence, keep my mind sharp, avoid becoming a burden, that's worth trying something experimental. If jellyfish can age backward, maybe I can at least age slower. These early applications are limited, experimental, often unsuccessful, but they represent the beginning of translating the jellyfish's biological immortality into human medicine. Scientists studying Turritopsis dohrnii describe the profound impact it has had on their careers and worldviews. Dr. Maria Miglietta, who maintains one of the few successful laboratory colonies of immortal jellyfish, describes the challenge. They're incredibly difficult to culture. They need exactly the right temperature, salinity, food, but when you successfully induce transformation, watch a medusa become a polyp, it never gets old. You're witnessing impossibility. Dr. Shin Kubota, who has studied the jellyfish for over 40 years in Japan, has become something of a celebrity, writing songs about the jellyfish and appearing on television. "This creature changed my life," he says. "It showed me that nature has secrets we haven't imagined. Every day I watch them, I learn something new." Dr. Stefano Pirino in Italy, who discovered the jellyfish's transformation in the wild, reflects, "When we first saw it, we couldn't believe it. We repeated the observation many times before accepting it was real. It challenged everything I learned in school about development being unidirectional." Young researchers entering the field describe being drawn by both scientific curiosity and personal hope. "My grandmother died of Alzheimer's," one PhD student explains. "If the jellyfish can reverse cellular aging, maybe one day we can reverse neurodegeneration. It's a long shot, but it's hope." Individuals who have deeply studied the immortal jellyfish often describe philosophical transformations in how they view life and death. A hospice worker shares, "Knowing that biological immortality exists somehow makes death less frightening for my patients. It's not that they expect to become immortal, but knowing that life found a way around death makes death seem less final, more like a choice evolution made rather than an absolute requirement." A Buddhist monk reflects, "The jellyfish embodies the Buddhist concept of impermanence in a paradoxical way. It's immortal yet constantly changing. It maintains form while transforming completely. It's a living koan, a puzzle that breaks logical thinking and opens deeper understanding." An artist explains, "The jellyfish inspired my recent series on transformation and identity. Each painting shows the same subject at different life stages simultaneously: child, adult, elder, all existing in the same space. Because if the jellyfish can be all ages at once, maybe we carry all our ages within us too." The study of Turritopsis dohrnii has created an unprecedented international collaboration network, the Immortal Jellyfish Genome Consortium. Scientists from 12 countries are working together to fully sequence and analyze the jellyfish's genome, comparing it with mortal species to identify the genes responsible for immortality. The Global Hydrozoan Initiative, marine biologists worldwide are searching for other potentially immortal species, sharing data through cloud platforms, using AI to identify transformation patterns in video footage. The Transdifferentiation Research Alliance, cell biologists from academia and industry, are collaborating to understand and replicate the jellyfish's cellular transformation abilities, sharing protocols and results in real time. The Longevity Translation Network, medical researchers are working to translate jellyfish discoveries into human therapies, coordinating clinical trials across continents to accelerate development. This collaboration transcends traditional boundaries. Military researchers share findings with civilian scientists. Competing pharmaceutical companies pool resources for basic research. Nations that rarely cooperate politically work together scientifically. The potential applications of immortal jellyfish research have attracted massive investment. Governments worldwide have allocated billions to longevity research inspired by Turritopsis dohrnii. The U.S. National Institute on Aging has a dedicated program for biological immortality translation. China's Eternal Youth Initiative aims to be first to achieve clinical applications. The European Union funds the Horizon Immortalize project. Private investment is even larger. Tech billionaires fund research institutes dedicated to defeating aging. Pharmaceutical companies race to develop drugs based on jellyfish biology. Venture capitalists pour money into startups promising to cure death. But this gold rush raises concerns. Some worry that profit motives might overshadow scientific rigor. Others fear that life extension technologies will only be available to the wealthy. The immortal jellyfish has become a symbol not just of biological possibility, but of social inequality. As discoveries accumulate, legal battles have erupted over who owns the intellectual property derived from Turritopsis dohrnii. Can anyone patent genes from a naturally occurring organism? Who owns synthetic versions of jellyfish proteins? If a company develops a life extension treatment based on jellyfish biology, How much do they owe to the basic researchers who made the discoveries? Some argue that immortality technology should be open source, available to all humanity. Others insist that without patent protection, companies won't invest in development. The jellyfish has become the center of a legal storm about ownership of biological innovation. Indigenous communities near where the jellyfish was discovered claim traditional knowledge rights. Environmental groups argue that commercializing the jellyfish's abilities without protecting its habitat is exploitation. Scientists worry that patent restrictions might slow research progress. The immortal jellyfish offers unique insights into how life might adapt to climate change. As oceans warm and acidify, most marine species face extinction threats, but Turritopsis dohrnii's transformation ability might allow it to survive conditions that kill other organisms. When stressed by temperature or chemistry changes, it can revert to the more resilient polyp stage. This adaptation strategy could inspire conservation approaches. Rather than trying to preserve species in their current form, we might help them develop transformation abilities, engineer coral that can become polyps during bleaching events, design fish that can enter suspended animation during ocean dead zones. But there's a dark side. As climate change creates marine dead zones, immortal jellyfish might be among the few survivors. Oceans dominated by jellyfish, a process called jellification, could become the new normal. The immortal jellyfish's success might come at the cost of marine biodiversity. Some researchers propose using the jellyfish as a climate change sentinel. Its transformation frequency might indicate environmental stress levels. Areas where jellyfish constantly cycle between forms could signal ecosystem breakdown. The spread of Turritopsis dohrnii worldwide raises questions about invasive species management. Traditional invasive species control assumes organisms will die. But how do you eliminate an immortal invader? Even if you kill adult jellyfish, polyps remain. Even if you remove polyps, medusae can settle and create new colonies. The jellyfish is immortality, makes it a perfect invasive species. It can survive ship transport in ballast water at any life stage. It can wait out unfavorable conditions as a polyp. It can rapidly colonize new areas through both sexual and asexual reproduction. Some ecologists worry about genetic pollution. If immortal jellyfish interbreed with local species, could they transfer immortality genes? Could we accidentally create new immortal organisms with unpredictable ecological impacts? Others see opportunity. If we're going to have invasive jellyfish anyway, why not study them? Each new population is a natural experiment in adaptation and evolution. The jellyfish's spread might teach us about biological flexibility and resilience. The immortal jellyfish creates unique conservation dilemmas. Should we protect an organism that might not need protection? If it's truly immortal and globally distributed, is it even possible for it to go extinct? Resources spent protecting immortal jellyfish might be better used for genuinely threatened species, yet the jellyfish's habitat, shallow coastal waters, faces severe human impacts. Pollution, development, warming, acidification all threaten these environments. Even an immortal organism needs somewhere to live. Some argue we should protect the jellyfish, not for its own sake, but for what we can learn from it. Each population might have unique adaptations, novel genes, different transformation triggers. Losing populations means losing biological information that could benefit humanity. The jellyfish also raises questions about what we mean by conservation success. Usually, we aim to maintain stable populations, but immortal jellyfish populations might naturally fluctuate wildly as individuals transform between life stages. What does healthy population dynamics look like for an immortal species? In the 2030s, we can expect clinical trials, the first human trials of therapies directly inspired by immortal jellyfish biology. Treatments for heart disease, using cardiac cell transdifferentiation, cancer therapies based on controlled transformation, anti-aging interventions targeting cellular reprogramming pathways. agricultural applications, crops engineered with jellyfish-inspired regeneration abilities entering field trials, livestock with enhanced healing based on transformation pathways, aquaculture using immortal principles for sustainable production, environmental tools, bioengineered organisms using jellyfish transformation for pollution cleanup, conservation strategies incorporating controlled transformation, climate adaptation technologies inspired by the jellyfish's resilience, societal debates, intense public discussion about life extension ethics, regulatory frameworks for immortality research, international agreements on sharing longevity technologies, cultural adaptation to the possibility of extreme life extension. As discoveries accumulate, legal battles have erupted over who owns the intellectual property derived from Turritopsis dohrnii. Can anyone patent genes from a naturally occurring organism? Who owns synthetic versions of jellyfish proteins? If a company develops a life extension treatment based on jellyfish biology, how much do they owe to the basic researchers who made the discoveries? Some argue that immortality technology should be open source, available to all humanity. Others insist that without patent protection, companies won't invest in development. The jellyfish has become the center of a legal storm about ownership of biological innovation. Indigenous communities near where the jellyfish was discovered claim traditional knowledge rights. Environmental groups argue that commercializing the jellyfish's abilities without protecting its habitat is exploitation. Scientists worry that patent restrictions might slow research progress. The immortal jellyfish offers unique insights into how life might adapt to climate change. As oceans warm and acidify, most marine species face extinction threats, but Turritopsis dohrnii's transformation ability might allow it to survive conditions that kill other organisms. When stressed by temperature or chemistry changes, it can revert to the more resilient polyp stage. This adaptation strategy could inspire conservation approaches. Rather than trying to preserve species in their current form, we might help them develop transformation abilities, engineer coral that can become polyps during bleaching events, design fish that can enter suspended animation during ocean dead zones. But there's a dark side. As climate change creates marine dead zones, immortal jellyfish might be among the few survivors. Oceans dominated by jellyfish, a process called jellification, could become the new normal. The immortal jellyfish's success might come at the cost of marine biodiversity. Some researchers propose using the jellyfish as a climate change sentinel. Its transformation frequency might indicate environmental stress levels. Areas where jellyfish constantly cycle between forms could signal ecosystem breakdown. The spread of Turritopsis dohrnii worldwide raises questions about invasive species management. Traditional invasive species control assumes organisms will die. But how do you eliminate an immortal invader? Even if you kill adult jellyfish, polyps remain. Even if you remove polyps, medusae can settle and create new colonies. The jellyfish is immortality, makes it a perfect invasive species. It can survive ship transport in ballast water at any life stage. It can wait out unfavorable conditions as a polyp. It can rapidly colonize new areas through both sexual and asexual reproduction. Some ecologists worry about genetic pollution. If immortal jellyfish interbreed with local species, could they transfer immortality genes? Could we accidentally create new immortal organisms with unpredictable ecological impacts? Others see opportunity. If we're going to have invasive jellyfish anyway, why not study them? Each new population is a natural experiment in adaptation and evolution. The jellyfish's spread might teach us about biological flexibility and resilience. The immortal jellyfish creates unique conservation dilemmas. Should we protect an organism that might not need protection? If it's truly immortal and globally distributed, is it even possible for it to go extinct? Resources spent protecting immortal jellyfish might be better used for genuinely threatened species, yet the jellyfish's habitat, shallow coastal waters, faces severe human impacts. Pollution, development, warming, acidification all threaten these environments. Even an immortal organism needs somewhere to live. Some argue we should protect the jellyfish, not for its own sake, but for what we can learn from it. Each population might have unique adaptations, novel genes, different transformation triggers. Losing populations means losing biological information that could benefit humanity. The jellyfish also raises questions about what we mean by conservation success. Usually, we aim to maintain stable populations, but immortal jellyfish populations might naturally fluctuate wildly as individuals transform between life stages. What does healthy population dynamics look like for an immortal species? In the 2030s, we can expect clinical trials, the first human trials of therapies directly inspired by immortal jellyfish biology. Treatments for heart disease, using cardiac cell transdifferentiation, cancer therapies based on controlled transformation, anti-aging interventions targeting cellular reprogramming pathways, agricultural applications, crops engineered with jellyfish-inspired regeneration abilities entering field trials, livestock with enhanced healing based on transformation pathways, aquaculture using immortal principles for sustainable production, environmental tools, bioengineered organisms using jellyfish transformation for pollution cleanup, conservation strategies incorporating controlled transformation, climate adaptation technologies inspired by the jellyfish's resilience, societal debates, intense public discussion about life extension ethics, regulatory frameworks for immortality research, international agreements on sharing longevity technologies, cultural adaptation to the possibility of extreme life extension. By 2124, immortal jellyfish research might enable partial human immortality, not complete transformation like the jellyfish, but selective regeneration of organs and tissues, hearts that can reverse damage, brains that can clear neurodegenerative proteins, bones that can rebuild themselves, transformation medicine, controlled cellular transformation as routine medical treatment, converting fat cells to muscle, transforming scar tissue to healthy tissue, changing cell types to treat disease, ecological engineering, ecosystems designed with transformation capabilities, forests that can adapt to climate change by reverting to seed banks, coral reefs that cycle through resistant forms, agricultural systems that transform in response to conditions, social transformation, societies organized around the possibility of extreme longevity, education systems for 200-year careers, economic models for post-scarcity immortal populations, governance structures for multi-century planning. In 1,000 years, the immortal jellyfish's legacy might include biological transcendence. Humanity might achieve not just life extension but true transformation abilities. The choice to age or reverse aging, the ability to adapt our biology to different environments, conscious control over our cellular identity, ecological integration, human civilization integrated with transformed nature, cities that grow and regenerate like organisms, agriculture that cycles through forms like the jellyfish, industry based on biological transformation rather than mechanical production, cosmic applications, transformation technology enabling space colonization, humans who can adapt to different gravities by transforming their biology, organisms engineered to terraform planets through transformation cycles, life spreading through the universe using immortal principles, philosophical evolution, new concepts of identity transcending individual lifespans, consciousness that persists through transformation, memory systems that survive biological renewal, meaning and purpose beyond mortality. How did Turritopsis dohrnii evolve immortality? This remains one of the deepest mysteries. Evolution usually favors mortality. Death clears out old individuals, making room for new genetic combinations. Sexual reproduction shuffles genes, creating variation for natural selection. Immortal organisms that reproduce clonally should be evolutionary dead ends. Yet the jellyfish thrives, spreading globally, adapting to diverse environments. Perhaps immortality provides advantages we don't understand. Maybe the ability to transform allows rapid adaptation without genetic change. Possibly the combination of sexual and asexual reproduction provides optimal evolutionary flexibility. Some theorists propose that immortality might be an ancient trait that most organisms lost. Perhaps early life was naturally immortal, and mortality evolved later as a strategy for accelerating evolution. The jellyfish might be a living fossil preserving life's original state. Others suggest immortality might be more common than we realize. We've only recently discovered it in Turritopsis dohrnii. How many other organisms have hidden immortality? As we search, we might find that biological immortality is not exceptional but simply overlooked. The immortal jellyfish raises profound questions about consciousness and identity. If we could transform like the jellyfish, would we maintain consciousness? The jellyfish has only a simple nerve net, no central brain to preserve memories or personality. Human transformation would need to preserve neural patterns while rebuilding tissue. Some neuroscientists argue consciousness emerges from neural connections, not specific neurons. If we could maintain connection patterns while replacing cells, consciousness might persist. The jellyfish shows biological transformation is possible. Preserving information during transformation is the challenge. Others contend that consciousness requires continuity that transformation would break. Even if we could rebuild an identical brain, would it be the same person or a copy? The jellyfish achieves biological immortality, but not psychological immortality. The question becomes practical as we develop brain-computer interfaces and consider uploading consciousness. Is consciousness substrate independent, able to transfer between biological and digital forms? The jellyfish suggests biology is more flexible than we thought. Perhaps consciousness is too. What does the immortal jellyfish mean for humanity's future and our understanding of life itself? At the practical level, it offers hope for defeating age-related disease, extending healthy lifespan, reducing suffering. The jellyfish proves these aren't impossible dreams, but achievable biological states. We might not become immortal, but we can certainly live longer, healthier lives. At the philosophical level, it challenges our assumptions about life's nature and purpose. If death isn't necessary, what drives existence? If aging is reversible, what defines progress? If identity can survive transformation, what constitutes self? At the spiritual level, it suggests life is more creative, persistent, and mysterious than we imagined. The universe produced an immortal organism, not through divine intervention, but through natural processes. This makes existence itself seem more magical, more full of possibility. Perhaps the immortal jellyfish's deepest meaning is that life finds ways around apparent limitations, ways through seeming impossibilities, ways to persist, adapt, transform, continue. The jellyfish embodies life's fundamental drive, not just to exist, but to persist, not just to survive, but to transcend. As we complete our journey with the immortal jellyfish, we return one last time to the ocean where it lives. The vast Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, Arctic waters, where tiny translucent forms pulse through the darkness, each one carrying the secret of eternal life. The ocean itself is immortal in its own way. Water cycles endlessly, evaporating, condensing, falling as rain, flowing to sea. The same molecules have been cycling for billions of years, taking countless forms but never truly disappearing. The jellyfish found a way to mirror this cycle in biological form. Perhaps this is the deepest lesson. Immortality isn't about stopping time but flowing with it. Not about preventing change but embracing transformation. Not about preserving a fixed form, but maintaining continuity through endless change. The ocean doesn't age though it's ancient. It's always becoming, waves forming and breaking, currents flowing and shifting, temperatures rising and falling. Yet through all this change, it remains the ocean. The jellyfish achieves something similar, always transforming, yet always itself. We, humans, stand at a unique moment in history. We're the first species to understand the molecular mechanisms of aging, the first to discover that biological immortality exists, the first to have the tools to potentially engineer our own longevity. The immortal jellyfish shows us what's possible, but we must decide what's desirable. Do we want to cycle endlessly, like the jellyfish, or find our own path to meaning that transcends mortality? Do we want biological continuation or something deeper? Perhaps our form of immortality won't be biological but cultural, technological, spiritual. We might not reverse aging like the jellyfish, but we can reverse ignorance through learning. We might not transform our cells, but we can transform our societies. We might not achieve bodily immortality, but we can create ideas and works that endure. The jellyfish achieves immortality through simplicity, reducing to basic form and rebuilding. Humans might achieve it through complexity, building systems, cultures, and technologies that outlast individual lives. Both strategies work, they're just different approaches to persistence. As our exploration ends, we're left with profound gratitude and wonder. Gratitude that such creatures exist, expanding our concept of what's possible, that scientists dedicate their lives to understanding them, that we live in an age where these secrets are being revealed, that nature is creative enough to produce biological immortality. Wonder at the mechanisms that enable transformation, at the evolutionary processes that created immortality, at the possibilities this opens for medicine and biotechnology, at the philosophical questions it raises about identity and existence. But most of all, wonder that a tiny, simple jellyfish has so much to teach us about life and death, about transformation and continuity, about the flexibility of biology and the persistence of existence, about our own mortality and what might lie beyond it. The immortal jellyfish will continue its cycle long after our contemplation ends. In ocean depths and laboratory tanks, Medusae will sink and transform into polyps. Polyps will bud new Medusae. The cycle will continue, neither beginning nor ending, neither progressing nor regressing, simply continuing. We will continue our cycle too, learning, growing, aging, contributing to the great human project. We might not reverse our aging, but we reverse entropy locally through our actions. We might not transform biologically, but we transform mentally, culturally, spiritually. Perhaps immortality isn't about the individual, but the pattern. The jellyfish maintains its pattern through transformation. Humanity maintains its pattern through generation. Life itself maintains its pattern through evolution. Different scales, same principle. Persistence through change. Understanding the immortal jellyfish brings a unique peace. Death becomes less frightening when you know it's not biologically inevitable. Aging becomes less oppressive when you know it can be reversed, at least in some organisms. The future becomes more open when you realize biology is more flexible than you thought, but it also brings peace about mortality. The jellyfish shows that immortality without progress is empty cycling, that continuation without consciousness is meaningless, that biological persistence without memory, growth, and purpose isn't the immortality we truly desire. We can appreciate our mortality as a different strategy for existence, not inferior to the jellyfish's immortality, just different. We burn brightly and briefly, rather than pulsing eternally. We accumulate rather than reset. We progress rather than cycle. Both strategies have beauty. Every ending is a beginning. The immortal jellyfish proves this literally. As we end our contemplation, we begin carrying this knowledge forward. The jellyfish has shown us possibilities we hadn't imagined. Now we must decide what to do with them. Will we pursue biological immortality inspired by the jellyfish? Will we accept mortality, but extend healthy life? Will we focus on cultural and technological immortality instead? These aren't just scientific questions but choices about what kind of future we want. The immortal jellyfish doesn't answer these questions, but it makes them possible. By proving biological immortality exists, it transforms death from necessity to choice, not individual choice yet. We can't choose to transform like jellyfish, but species choice about what to research, develop, become. As you prepare for sleep, perhaps you'll dream of jellyfish pulsing through dark waters, transparent bells contracting and expanding, tentacles trailing like silk threads. The endless rhythm of transformation, Medusa to polyp to Medusa again. In your dreams you might experience what the jellyfish cannot, the conscious appreciation of immortality. You might feel what it's like to reverse aging, to transform completely, to begin again with full memory of what came before. The dream gives you what biology currently cannot, conscious immortality. But when you wake, you'll still be one day older, your telomeres slightly shorter, your cells slightly more senescent, time moving in its familiar direction. Yet you'll also carry the knowledge that this might not always be true, that somewhere, research, inspired by a tiny jellyfish, might be unlocking the secrets of aging. Thank you, Turritopsis dohrnii. Thank you for showing us that immortality is possible, for proving that aging can be reversed, for demonstrating that death isn't mandatory, for expanding our conception of what life can achieve. Thank you for inspiring researchers to dream bigger, for giving patients hope for treatments, for pushing science into new territories, for challenging philosophy and religion to reconsider ancient assumptions. Thank you for being small and humble, proving that the greatest mysteries don't require grandeur, for being difficult to study, teaching patience and persistence, for spreading globally, ensuring your secrets won't be lost. Most of all, thank you for the paradox you embody, immortal yet unconscious, eternal yet cycling, persistent yet transforming. You've shown us that existence is more creative and flexible than we imagined, that life finds ways we never expected. That impossibility is just undiscovered possibility.